Hello, welcome to the second episode of Uncommunity interviews where we speak with community professionals. So today we have Shreyass, who is a friend and we have worked in the past. So hello and welcome, Shreyass. Without further ado, let's get started. So please, introduce yourself in like 30, 40 seconds, and then we take it from there.
Cool. Thanks, Rafy, for the introduction. Really happy to be here. Um, as Rafy mentioned, we've worked before. We have talked before. We've built communities together before. I've been building communities in open source and tech for about 5 years now professionally. And I've been involved with open source communities for about 9 years, doing different stuff, right from education to digital rights advocacy and internet health related stuff. Really happy to be here and talk with you today.
Nice. So you mentioned open source. Can you tell us more about how did your journey started? Like, I'm sure it's through open source because your professional experience is 5, and then you have been building for like 9 years. So how did it work?
Sure. So I initially started volunteering with this community called Mozilla. I started as a student ambassador and then, grew the local community in my university. We did a bunch of stuff around providing education about web and technology to kids at schools. So we were, as part of that, we were invited to like different schools, universities, colleges across the country to give talks and talk to people about Mozilla. Um, and that was my beginning with an open source project. And then I also did an internship with the Open Source Initiative, which is like this organization that sort of defines what open source software is, and they give out like licenses, they review licenses and all of that. So that has been my sort of introduction to.
Okay. Uh, so Shreyas, like I'm sure you spend most of the time on the internet, and like it's the same with me. So you have been like, I'm sure you spend most of the time on the internet. Like, so it's the same with me. Like, I spend most of my time on the internet. And we see a lot of definitions about community. Like if I Google today, what's community? Like, there are hundreds of definitions. So what's community according to you? Like, what is your definition? Like, if you want to explain it to someone, a community, what does it mean for you?
Sure. Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the internet. We have no life. um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, to come back to your question about community, I think to me, community is just about like bringing together different people and crafting those experiences and forming relationships together with like a shared sense of value or purpose, right? And I think it's also important that all of these people that you bring may be affiliated with different communities, like that's fine. But your community, what you're offering them is just like one part of their identity, if that makes sense. So for instance, I could be interested in open source, I could be interested in photography, I could be interested in sneakers, right? All of these are like different facets. So me as an individual can belong to like or identify with these different communities. So I think really bringing together those different people and providing those relationships and experiences to form a sense of identity is really what is community to me.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, right? Like, so when someone, like, you get people together who has a similar understanding of what they are trying to do or achieve. So that's a good one. Yeah. Like, among other things, you have been working with startups for like 5 years or more than 5 years in different domains. But one other thing that caught me is interesting. Which got me interesting is like you work with, like, it's all blockchain and like maybe one or two, and it's all similar to developer tools and platforms, right? So this is like almost a similar field or a similar domain. So if someone wants to start their career as a community manager, like, is it necessary to stick to just one domain, or can they move from, like, the developer tools to the e-commerce to any other kind of domain which they're interested?
Yeah, I think it really depends from person to person. I think my specific area of interest, right? Like from, as you mentioned, like these have been very dev focused, and more specifically in dev, these have been open source focused, right? So if you take scroll back was open source, and then I moved to Hasgeek again doing open source developer conferences, and then Constellation Labs, they were also building an open source platform for which they wanted people and adoption and all of that. So I think the common thread between all of them has been open source, at least in my career. And that's because that is a conscious choice I've made, because I'm specifically interested in that topic, which is I've been contributing to open source even before I started my professional career. So I think just allowing, just building that community and giving people the platform to do great things, focus on developer education and invest in developers in an empathetic manner, like without shoving down your agenda through their, through their throats. What can you do to empower the ecosystem? And how do you like build the community as a whole? Like how do you provide like leadership or mentorship, or how do you see their career progress? All of those things have been really passionate. That's something that I've been really passionate about. So I've tried to stick with open source developer communities as a focus. But to answer your question, I don't think it is necessary to do that. Like if someone who's starting out new, if you've not found your calling, like if you don't have a specific area of interest, but you know that you still want to build communities, I would say go ahead, do experiment with organizations that you feel is a good fit, right? I mean, it's not ultimately about like getting a job. It's also about like finding whether it's a right fit. Like if there's a community that you're really passionate about, I think you should go for that. That said, I've also like managed or helped or consulted with communities that have been focusing on remote work and building like how do you build a remote team and stuff like that. So I've consulted with that part of the projects as well. But yeah, I don't think there should be, at least when you're starting out, right? But as you grow, I think it is key to establish, I think it would be ideal to establish a niche, because community management is a very wide profession, right? Like if you Google for community managers, I think the first thing that comes up is also this real estate community management, which
That's
is
a lot, yeah.
property management, right? So I think community management can mean different things. It's also like social media, and there's a whole lot of ambiguity in the space. And I think as you grow, it would be better for you to like carve out a niche that you're interested in, so that if someone's looking out for an opportunity, they know who to reach out to, right? So if there's someone looking out for like a developer, open source developer community manager, they know who to reach out to. Or they can reach out to me, or if they're doing an e-commerce thing, they can reach out to someone else, right? So I think it's as you grow in terms of seniority, I think that might be ideal to sort of carve out a niche.
Yeah, understood, get it. So I mean, so you need to build a kind of a your people, like you said, right? So you have been working in that space for years, and the next thing, if someone needs a help regarding the open source developer community manager, they know, okay, I know a guy who has been in the space for years. He's pretty good. So, and you have built a brand for yourself for by working over the years, right? So if a new person comes out, like just like within a year and two, and like they don't even, like they don't have a name for themselves, like they still have to work hard to be in that level where someone can say, okay, he's the guy, right? So you need to keep on investing time in yourself. uh, I think so. The interesting point that I mean that kind of noticed is you mentioned like scroll back Hasgi, right? It's in the developer years, but you were in that space before even getting started as a professional career, right? So right, which means if so, like does a new community manager, does he or she has to have some kind of background in that space contributing to open source or non-profit, or to get the first job, or is it necessary, or is it okay to ignore this and then directly jump into the career aspect of it?
Yeah, I think it is. I would say ideally it's good to have, because if I look at my own career, right, which is starting with Scrollback, the only reason that I got the job was because of my involvement with Mozilla. Like I was active on the mailing list, I was active in the community, so people knew me. And then they reached out to me saying, "We have this position available. Would you be interested?" Right? It's all about the connections that you make. The previous community evangelist, when she was moving on, she reached out to me and said, "Are you interested in this role? We're doing this open source chat platform or whatever, right?" And even then, with HasGeek, I've been involved with the uh, Save the Internet movement and a couple of other movements that we've done with the team at Scrollback, and along with people from HasGeek as well. So we knew each other, and I also knew that there was like a good fit, as they were really interested in investing in communities. So that's the reason I reached out to them saying, I know what you can do better, and this is why you should have me on board, right? That was a conversation with HasGeek at that point, and that's how I got the role. So I think, just speaking from my background, I would say, and especially like if I'm looking to bring someone on board, right? If I'm looking to grow a team and bring someone on board, I would definitely look for someone with previous experience. It could be like volunteering, right? Even if you're volunteering, you're not getting paid for it, but you're getting paid for it in terms of like experience that you're building and things that you're learning. So I would say that it is ideal, but even so, the other thing is, even you could discover your passion or your interest like way later, right? For me, I was fortunate enough to find out that I was really interested in open source and I wanted to continue with it at a very early stage. But if you're still in the process of figuring that out, I think it's absolutely okay to reach out to companies that you're specifically interested in. Like if there's a product that you really use and you really like, and then you want to be a part of the team, I think that would still count, right? So you don't necessarily need to have nonprofit or tech volunteering, as an experience. But I think even just giving meaningful suggestions about the product or platform, um, anything that really shows your passion towards the role, I think that would really help.
Yeah, fair enough. Like you need to be kind of be passionate about the product or the service or something that like a company is offering, and kind of double down on what how you can help improve that, and that is how you can actually build a rapport or something like that, right?
Absolutely.
You're so you worked like not like you worked for Mozilla and as a contributor, as a volunteer for many years, and then you have been on the like on the parallelly you have been working on with companies, right? How did you manage your time? I'm sure like it was heavy work for you, because by doing two things at the same time.
Yeah. So I am someone who thrives on doing multiple things at the same time. I have to be in this constant state of doing something always. So either I'm like learning something or contributing to something or figuring out something, right? I think that sort of constant in the go sort of situation has um, helped me a lot. And I think, and that is not for everyone, right? Obviously, like a lot of people are obviously different. So that's worked for me. That's what I enjoy. And I think specifically about Mozilla, I think I've been very transparent with most of the organizations that I've worked with, saying that I am going to be contributing to other projects. So are you okay with that? Like during the conversation phase with the team, I always ask that question. Unfortunately, all of these organizations were more than happy to allow me to do that, even if as long as it's not interfering with their work, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it is about finding, and I think over the years, my involvement has reduced as well. Mozilla obviously focuses on like a lot of different projects. So initially, I was like super involved, like doing 100 different things. Now I focus on one thing which I am really passionate about. So for instance, like right now, I'm contributing to the Internet Health Report, which is trying to figure out what are the internet health issues in different parts of the world. So we highlight that together with the team at Mozilla, and then we put together like a report and stuff. So I'm contributing to the 2021 version of the report, where we're just highlighting all of this stuff that's happening around, digital literacy, privacy, and surveillance, and shutdowns, and a whole bunch of things around the issues on the internet. And most of these calls are like after my regular work, so it's usually in the evening. So I'm able to work on that, and it's also like Mozilla as a team is very like decentralized, right? They work across different countries and all of that, and so all of the communication mostly happens asynchronously, which I think is super important in inclusion of volunteers from around the world, so that you still have your chance to give your feedback or opinion on different things. So I think they as an organization have also played that contributor path very well. And so I think that sort of situation helped me do that. And obviously, like, I'm also like really passionate about that, right? So it's not really work for me, it's something that I really enjoy doing. So I think that plays a key role.
Yep. I guess makes sense. Yeah. So I think my like the question is for you, like, tell us something interesting that you worked on a project or something, uh, like like building a community for developers. Like, how is it different? What is involved? How would you get your first 100 users if you're building something like that?
Sure. I think the key thing about working with developers is that they they can identify your bullshit, right? They can like see right through it. You can't really fool around with them. You can't really show them something very fancy, and then once you remove the curtains, it's all like a burning house behind that. That doesn't work with developers, especially in open source, because all of your work is out there in the open, so you can't really lie about it as well, right? So I think my approach has always been trying to understand, like, even before you join an organization, right? Just try to understand what is the community like, how are users interacting with the product, what has there been any feedback loop at all, in terms of are they vocal about the community? Like if you take like the Free Software Movement Foundation's
Yeah.
team, right? They're all very vocal. They say, okay, this is not a policy that we agree with. There can be disagreements, right? And I think that's perfectly normal. But I would say, like, going from a 0 to 100 or a 50, right? That is key, right? It's not only about building a community, it is also dependent on what you're trying to solve, right? The problem that you're trying to solve with your product or platform or whatever, right? So then then you sort of figure out, okay, is this like a real problem versus a perceived need, right? An actual need versus perceived need. This is, you look at the product market fit and all of that. So that is all your job. And then once you sort of figure out that this is an actual need that people have, right? And then you sort of focus on, okay, which avenues do you use for customer acquisition or user acquisition or whatever, right? So this could be, if you're talking specifically about developer communities, this could be a post on Reddit, a relevant subreddit, or a Hacker News forum, or even like your individual network, right? There could be the reason that you found out that this is a problem was specifically because you were working on something and you tried to solve that, right? You couldn't find something good enough, or either there was nothing good enough for your problem specifically, or it just does not exist, right? There's nothing that you want that can solve your problem. And so then you sort of dig into, okay, which are the avenues that I can reach out to where these similar set of people facing the similar set of problems are available, right? And then you sort of talk to them right from the initial phase, right from gathering requirements, right, to actually building it out, and then keep them informed about all of your progress, right? If you're building a platform for onboarding people with like new APIs and stuff, right, keep them informed, saying that, okay, this is the stage that I'm in, and now I want your feedback. Like, keep them involved in the entire process, which means that they're also invested in some way. The only key thing that you have to note here is you have to be mindful and cognizant about their time, especially if you're asking them for free, like you're not compensating them. You should really be aware that they have their own priorities in life. Their focus is not your project. But if they've expressed interest in helping you out, you can ask them for their inputs and all of that. And then really, like, with as the platform grows, right, as you grow the community, it starts with like your super users or advocates or whatever you want to call it, right? and then you sort of spread that through your network effect and whatever. And then you also like figure out engagement strategies. So it's basically like breaking it down into three, which is, growth, engagement, and retention, right? You want to bring people together, you want to engage them so that they do not leave, right? So you want to like essentially retain them. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it is a challenge, but obviously, as long as you are invested in this entire process, or you're not doing this just for namesake. If like the example would be, if a community member gives you like a useful feedback or user suggestion, and you do not incorporate that, then there's no reason for them to next time, come to you the next time with a feedback or something, because you're not going to listen to them anyways. So I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
maintaining a fine balance between that, and then growing the community by actually investing in them.
Absolutely right. So, I mean, when you get someone, like when you are in a community building product, and I mean, it's not that you have on your website or a landing page, it says we are here for the community, right? You need to be actually very serious about what you're trying to do. Like, you need to figure out, like, if I am getting a feedback, do I actually implement those in my product or not, right? I mean, it's not like just say, okay, we are here for the community. Like, you need to be very serious, and then that's how it works. And the other part of, I think, which also, like, which I mean could be very helpful is, like if you're starting out with your product, actually go where your audience is, like where other developers is, right? Like, you can't be just today like announce on any of your social media that, hey, I'm building this, right? So I'm sure you will get like less than 5-10 engagement, like if you just consider your friends. So you need to be in that uh, that part of the community where there are actual real developers out there who are doing something, right? Which is
Absolutely.
definitely going to help you a lot when you are starting out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's especially like, if you're building like a product or whatever, right? Now with everything being online, especially during COVID, right? It's all the more easier because you have all of this, webinars, and you're in fact like, this Zoom, Zoom stress is real, right? Which with Zoom fatigue is real, because all of this companies are doing webinars, all of these communities are doing webinars, everyone's doing webinars, right? So I think it's an opportunity for you to like actually listen to what your people are saying and what their problems are, and then trying to build that genuine connection, not to like sell them, right? If I want to build something right now, I don't want to make a connection with Rafy as someone who I would sell to in the future, but I want to like maintain that genuine connection so that next time I want to sell something, I can ask for your advice and input on the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Shreyas, walk us through like your learnings in the community management, like as a domain starting up, because I'm sure when you started there were less resources. So how would you get yourself kind of acknowledged or kind of uh, familiar with things, metrics, engagement, all those templates, and how to go forward? Like, how would you do that? Because today, if I cover the internet, I'll find tons of resources, but back in the day, I'm sure you were facing difficulties.
Yeah, I think the challenge obviously was that there wasn't enough uh, people that you can look up to, right? There weren't like a peer group that you can talk to about your problems. Sure, there were, CMX and Fever Bee, and all of which have been the community roundtable. All of them have been like extremely important resources for me when I was learning. I used to literally spend hours just on the website reading blogs, and on their Twitter feed reading through the tweets and all of that. I think that significantly helped me. But what is more helpful right now, given that we have all of these people, so I was doing like a LinkedIn search the other day, and we have like 100,000 people in India listed, listing community management as their profession, right? Which which is not like an indicator of something. Like it does not indicate that the community industry is flourishing, but you at least know that people are familiar with this than it was back in like 2015 or 2014, right? Which is a good sign, I would say. I think now, at least in this, 100,000 people, if there are like at least 100 people or 200 people or 1,000 people that you can talk to and figure out, share your problems, right? This is something that I'm specifically facing in my industry. How have you solved this? And I think a lot of the skills are also like interdisciplinary, right? In the sense that it is not just pertaining to one field. It is not just specifically to like developer communities. You would still apply the same principles for, across different communities. So when starting out, it was also like very experimentative, right? Especially at a startup at the scale of that which I worked at, which is like 8 people with barely any funding and all of that, right? Which means that we had to do a lot of different things. So community management, as we know today, like today I know better. I know what entails community management. But back in the day, I was doing marketing, growth, social media, content, sales. Everything was just like one person. So I think that's been my biggest learning in terms of understanding what this specific role entails and not do the work of like 10, 20 different people. But I think that's also, it's inevitable when it's a small company. But as you grow, you sort of know that, okay, this is your specialization and this is what you want to sort of continue with. So I think that would be my key takeaway. But I think through that process, the good thing that happened was I learned a lot about each of these different avenues as well. Like I learned how to write better. I can at least like significantly better when before I started out. I can write better content. I can uh, talk to people better. I can sell stuff at least significantly better when I started off. So I think it's been a learning. But yeah, now that you have all of these resources, it's especially helpful to learn about different aspects of community management.
Yeah, I mean, so like you get hired as a community manager, and then you're told, okay, you have to do social media. Like that will be so bad reaction from the person who got hired. Like, what? This is not something I'm signed up for.
Yeah, I mean, now that you say, it's interesting, right? Now that you say that, a lot of people realize the difference. But back in the day, there's not enough understanding about all of this, especially in India, to figure out, okay, this is not what I'm really signing up for. And I think a lot of people also like don't have the agency, right? They're not experienced enough to have that voice and like push back and say that it's not part of my
Yeah,
role. And that comes with experience and a whole lot of other factors as well.
yep, yep. So you spoke about growth marketing, all the other stuffs that you did. I mean, if it's a startup, you have kind of do multiple things by wearing multiple hats because you have these like less resources and constraints. You have time constraints. So okay, like what's how do like if you have any kind of skills, right? Like be a community manager or something, and your task is to grow a community, right? So and you do it from audience, like the first step of building a community, I mean, I could be wrong, but the first step is you have to grow the number of audience, the number of people that you have on what you are doing, and that's one of the gateway to funnel like it's kind of a funnel wherein you have an audience, you have a community, then you have like super users and fans, and then you have a people like a cult or something like that, where they're like passionate about what you're doing, like no matter what they will go above and beyond to help you out, right? So how do you do that? Like what's like give us an example of the audience, give us an example of a community, like is there a good community that is like born out of something like that?
Sure. So I think it's it's also interesting, right? I mean, if you look at the whole and my limited purview is within tech, right? Specifically within tech. So there could be a lot of different communities that I've also interacted with people who are building community of artists, who are building community of writers, and uh, music community around music and books and all of that. So there's a lot of interesting work going on in the space broadly, but like, and a lot of these are also like meetups. Like if you consider like meetup groups, right, they're also in a sense a community, right? It could be something from an AWS meetup where people are talking about Amazon web services and all of that, to something like a bike riding meetup where people still have that sort of shared sense of identity and purpose and all of that. So I would say that you don't necessarily have to have an audience, in the sense that it is good to have. It is a great addition to your building the community process. In the process of building that community, you sort of have an audience. But I would say, don't wait until you have that audience in order to build your community. Don't say that until I reach 100 people who are following me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, I won't start my community building efforts. I think that should go parallelly. You should still, obviously we know that consistency and, content and all of this plays a really huge role in building the community. But to specifically answer your question, I would say an audience is essentially like a one directional conversation, right? You are talking to your followers on Twitter or your people on Instagram, right? That's very one directional. You're not really seeking input from them. Sure, there is the functionality for them to comment and tweet
Yeah.
at you, but you're not really building that, right? You're just like a celebrity who wants to like push out content saying that, okay, this is what I'm building. Whereas in a community, I think a lot of people have equal agency in the sense that all of the voices are heard at the same time, and then that everyone can speak, and then their action, their inputs are really validated by your community. So I think that would be a key difference. And I think some communities that I've been a huge fan of is the Team BHP community, right? They have a huge following in terms of both in terms of like people who are getting interested in like vehicles and cars and driving and all of that, to actual fans who I've seen like jeeps stuck with the sticker of like Team
Yeah.
BHP, who are like proudly wearing that as a sign of association with the team or the community, right? So I think that's something that I've really looked up to as a community from specifically from India.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this could be, an interesting point where, like, if you have built that community where people love you a lot, like, they would proudly wear like a T-shirt, like sticker on a laptop or a vehicle, and do a show off because they are proud and of they're proud because they are part of that community since years. Because from the starting they have, like, the Team BHP or any brand have built that kind of a belonging or something where people love to be part of, right? Yeah, actually, very true, right? So shares, like, what is, like, community building, like, how important is for you personally? What keeps you motivated, like?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned before, right, which is actually being able to see the growth of your community members is something that really excites me. I think you are a great example, right? I mean, the first time that we interacted, right, which was about scroll back, and then I came to your university, I spoke to you, I spoke to people at your university, and then seeing your progression, to joining the community industry and making a name for yourself, and now we're having this conversation. I think examples like that make me really proud. Like you can actually witness this journey, and that's also because the relationship that we've built, right? It's not because of an organization, but it's also about like the personal relationship that we've built with the community members, which is way more important to me than any specific organization. Because you can leave an organization and you can just go on, but that sort of relationship still sticks with people. So I think really seeing that progress in terms of where people are heading, and being, having at least a small role to play a part in that, I think is means a lot to me. So I think that's what keeps me motivated about building communities and really talking to people and understanding, how we can all build this community together, and also like really learn from them, right? I've learned a ton from you. I think I've learned a ton from all of the interactions that I've had with different community members that I've spoken to. So I think that is what really drives me at this point.
Yep, yep. Makes sense. Yeah, so you can leave the organization, but I mean, if you have built up like personal relationships, then like it goes for years and years, and even if you're not in the same organization anymore,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, this is very, like, interesting for me, and I'm sure for most of the people in the as a community professional, right? Like, shares, your profile is, you're based out of India, and you have worked for the companies outside of India. That's like remote work, and you are very vocal about remote work also, right? And this could be like a dream opportunity for a lot of people in India who love to be a part of organizations outside, right? Doing remote work. Right? How did you land your first one, and what are the advice that you could give to people who actually wants a remote work? and who wants to get a job at something which is not in India. I mean, I'm not saying India is bad. I'm saying just like, there could be some interesting company startup who is in the valley and who would love to have a community manager. Like, what are your tips to do that?
Um, Wait for COVID or another global pandemic so that the world moves remote. But yeah, I mean, on a serious note, I would say that it not now. I would say that things are a lot different than back when I started remote, which is around 3 years ago, which is when I sort of moved full time remote. And I've been remote ever since, right? So I don't really, for me, it's just like a normal life right now. It's nothing fancy, right? Because this is the way that I want to work, and I've sort of made that very clear as well. So um, I would say that start by volunteering. At least that really helped me because, especially in open source, right? When you're sticking to this niche, um, start by volunteering with organizations that, especially in tech, with all of these opportunities, I would say show that you can work remotely, you can execute projects, you can show that you are accountable, you can get work done without micromanagement, and you are really focused on what you're working on. That really helps remote employers build trust. Secondly, have the expertise that they're looking for, right? I would say a lot of people that are putting out these job descriptions, if you think that you qualify for at least 70%, apply for it. Don't worry about anything. The most thing that the thing that you're going to lose out is on time that you spend applying, right? It's not going to like, it's not, they're not going to come back at you like, why did you apply for this role? It's not a right fit, right? No, you don't have to worry about that part. So I think wait for opportunity, look out for opportunities like that and really consider applying. And the most important advice is, even if the job is not explicitly listed as remote, don't wait for a remote opportunity, because if you're waiting for a remote opportunity, it means that you're competing with candidates from all over the world, right? Essentially anyone in India, anyone in the US, anyone in the UK, anyone anywhere in the world can find that job listing and they can apply for it. So you're competing with a larger pool, which is good if you think that you have the specific skill set, and if you think that you can crack it, it's great. But otherwise, I would say reach out to roles, even if they're not explicitly listed as remote. If you really want it, tell them that you have this experience working remotely, and you would really, this is how you see that you can help them out, right? So the biggest tip would be apply with a cover letter, because if you're not applying with a covering letter, the role is already listed as US. A lot of these companies have restrictions as well, like in terms of where they can hire. A lot of the bigger companies do. A lot of the smaller companies don't really have that restriction. It's just a matter of like ease of working with people and colleagues. So I think that has been always my approach, which is, even if I don't see a role that is specifically listed as remote, I would still apply for it. And especially if it's something that I'm interested in, I would definitely go and apply for it. Um, but it is not to say that it doesn't come with its own set of challenges, because there's obviously this whole remote first and remote friendly, and all of this concept, which is, if you are the only person at the organization that's working remotely, you will have a lot of challenges. So it isn't for everyone. A lot of people thrive on in office work. They want to like shut down their laptop after they leave work and all of that, which is totally understandable, right? It's a set of people who perform better like that. But for me, I am a little more productive later in the day. I don't really tend to work a lot in the morning. And for me, it just works that I work in the Europe or US time zone, because I can just stay up a little later towards the day. um, so that would be the remote challenges with work, especially in terms of like collaborating with colleagues. The other thing, obviously, that not a lot of people speak about is the taxes, and how do you handle like foreign transactions coming into your account. You still have to like set up for GST. You have to file your GST returns, and you have to hire a CA and all of that, which is all minor challenges. But we still have to acknowledge those challenges. It's not like all rosy. And you also have challenges while traveling, especially when you're working remotely, because a lot of these countries that you travel to would require a letter from your employer stating that you are on leave, right? Because they don't really, like, the world isn't equipped to handle remote work, at least until COVID happened. So it meant that I would have to like reach out to all of my employers each time I was traveling to a new country and tell them that, can you send me a leave letter? I mean, I won't definitely be on like leave. I would still be working because, we don't have to take a leave because we're still working. But yeah, legally they would have to like send me a letter saying that, okay, this person is on leave from so and so date. So for the last, I think 2018 or 2019, I was traveling for like 6-7 months, and then if you look at the leave letters stated, it would mean that I was on leave for like 6 months straight, but I was still working. So I think those are the challenges. Those are the interesting challenges that come with remote.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, one of the interesting, like, I think, find is also like, hit that button is, I mean, it's a Silicon Valley culture. I mean, of course, like people, they create a hype. I mean, they do something amazing and they create a hype, which is absolute, I mean, which is okay. And other thing is like I mean, when you talk about the remote work, like it's not necessary that the job description has a remote tag in it, but even regarding the experience, like someone says, okay, I need like 8 years of experience, right? So I found something again very interesting that Figma. There's this company called Figma for like I think they are also remote, but they are like design based, and it's not been even like 5-6 years since they launched, and in a job description there was like 8 years of Figma, like, and the company founder was like, what, like you guys should hire me, like I've been working, and you guys, they just mentioned some kind of random years of experience, right? So I think the most important thing here is to kind of just hit the send button, right? Upload, like, do a good cover letter, and then just let's go, let's see what happens next. I mean, you don't have anything to lose, even if you don't have any experience, right? Like, what if someone sees your background, a recruiter or someone who is responsible for hiring looks at it and, okay, this is very interesting. Like, they might not have like a lot of experience, but based on the work they have done, it looks really promising. Like, maybe they just send an email, hey, let's talk, right? Which is, again, it's your first step of progress. So I think that's very important. Just hit the send button. Like, don't wait for anything.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the, like, again, what's your favorite place of work? Like, you have been working as a remote, so where would you go travel to and work for, like, as a remote worker, like for like 6 months, 12 months straight without coming back?
Mm, that that would be really tough. I don't see myself working out of one place for 6 months unless it's my home, like my actual
Okay.
home in Bangalore. But especially outside, I would say one place that I really enjoyed working from is Maldives, with the water. I'm definitely like a beach person and not a mountains person. So I really enjoyed that, which meant that after getting your work done or in the middle of the work, you can just go for a swim and then come back and do all those fancy thing that you hear about, like the digital nomad life.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important for all these people talking about this digital nomad life to also show the other side, which is you're still like traveling away. You are, disconnected from your actual, people that are around you, your family or whatever, right? And those relationships that you built. So everything is still not like rosy and as the Instagram picture suggests, right? But you still need to acknowledge that this is, but I think those experiences really teach you a lot, like talking to different people, understanding cultures, and obviously eating the food, right? It's all part of the experience, and I think that really teaches you a lot. So if given a chance, I think I would probably, like, the only place that I would visit for a second time is probably Maldives.
Yeah. So where could our audience go to find you? Where are you online?
I am everywhere. I am on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can just search. My name is pretty long and pretty unique. So if you search specifically for Shreyas Narayan Kutty, you can find me on different websites where you can get in touch with me.
All right. So great talking to you. It was pleasure, Shreyass, after a long time. So many valuable, like, wisdom. Be like good luck and stay safe in Bangalore. Yeah, that's our end of the episode.